4 years ago, a woman known only as the Bride woke up in a hospital bed. After being in a coma for what felt like forever, she couldn't remember anything about who she was or how she got there. All she knew was that her body was weak and her mind burned with one purpose: revenge. You see, before she fell into that coma, she was part of a deadly assassination squad. But despite being a highly skilled killer herself, she decided to quit and start a new life. However, the squad didn't take kindly to her leaving and decided to teach her a lesson she'll never forget. They attacked her wedding rehearsal, beating her, murdering everyone around her, and shooting her right in the head. Miraculously, she survived the attack, but she lost her unborn child and most of her memories. Now, after waking up from that coma, all she had were fragments of her past and an insatiable desire for revenge. As she slowly learned to walk again, she set out to kill every member of that squad and eventually confront the leader, her lover and mentor, Bill. And to help keep track of her targets, she wrote their names on a death list 5, crossing each name out as she took them down. So join us as we revisit each step of her long journey towards vengeance, starting with her first target, Vernita Green. Vernita Green was once the deadliest viper of them all, but now she lived an ordinary life in a quiet, suburban home with her young daughter. The Bride arrived on her doorstep, knocked on the door, and walked in as if she owned the place. And Vernita was shocked to see her. She quickly hid her face behind a kitchen towel and pretended not to know anything about what was going on. But the Bride wasn't buying it. She told her she was no longer the woman she used to be, and that she was here to collect on the debt that she owed. But Vernita simply laughed it off, thinking she was just some crazy psycho who stumbled into the wrong house. But when the Bride revealed the katana hidden under her yellow raincoat, Vernita's face drained of color. She knew exactly who she was dealing with. And as soon as she realized that she was about to die, she ran and grabbed her daughter from her room. She held her close and promised her everything would be all right. Then she turned back to her attacker and bowed her head in submission, hoping that she would spare her daughter's life. At first, the Bride agreed to let the child go, but seeing the fear in her eyes, she changed her mind. She lunged forward, knocking the girl unconscious and turning back to Vernita. She told her she wouldn't feel anything, and although she hesitated at first, eventually Vernita relented and allowed the Bride to kill her. Next up was Orin Ishii, now the feared head of the Tokyo Yakuza. But before the Bride could reach her, she had to fight her way through dozens of gang members, including the masked Crazy 88, Orin's deadly bodyguard, Gogo Yubari, and even her pet monkey. It was a brutal fight, but the Bride was unstoppable. And eventually, she found herself face to face with Orin in a snowy garden under the moonlight. Despite the beauty of the setting, the fight between them was far from graceful. The Bride fought with fierce determination while Orin relied on her status as a master swordsman. In the end, the Bride's strength and agility proved to be too much for Orin, and she was forced to flee. However, she was captured shortly after and brought back to the garden where the Bride confronted her again. This time, there was no hesitation. The Bride fought with everything she had, fueled by her desire for revenge. And finally, as the moon shone brightly overhead, she disarmed Orin and sliced the top of her head clean off. But Orin wasn't the only one to meet such a gruesome fate. Throughout the course of her journey, the Bride also killed Bud, Bill's brother, and L Driver, both assassins on her list. And she did so in ways that made them suffer as much as they possibly could. Like when she buried Bud alive, for example, after he anticipated her arrival and shot her with rock salt, or when she plucked out Elle's remaining eye, blinding her before leaving her to die in Bud's trailer. However, not every encounter was as straightforward. For example, before taking on Orin, the Bride sought out her former mentor, Pai Mei, to learn the secrets of his legendary martial art form. But when she arrived at his remote mountain hut, she found him dead. Not wanting to waste any more time, she decided to stay the night and meditate on the stone outside his hut. And while she slept, she had visions of her past, which showed her how she trained under Pai Mei and endured his impossible physical punishment until she mastered his deadly techniques. She was only 19 years old at the time, and had already gained a reputation as the deadliest viper of them all. In fact, she was so skilled that even Bill, her lover and leader of the squad, feared her abilities. And yet, she chose to leave the team to start a new life with a normal man. But the other Vipers didn't approve and attacked her wedding rehearsal, killing everyone there and leaving her in a coma for 4 years.
And now, thanks to her visions, the bride remembered everything about her past and she was ready to take on Oren.
She continued her journey, this time fighting her way through dozens of gang members, until she reached Oren's inner circle. There, she faced off against 2 formidable opponents, a pair of twin sisters known as the Deadly Viper Assassination Squad. Despite their best efforts, the twins were no match for her skills and she defeated them easily. But Oren wasn't done with her yet. She appeared behind the bride, holding a sword to her throat, and taunted her, demanding that she surrender. But the bride refused, countering that she would only surrender if Oren severed her ponytail. Intrigued by this unusual request, Oren accepted, but she ended up regretting her decision because as soon as she did, the bride struck, knocking her down and incapacitating her. With Oren out of the picture, the bride was finally able to claim the life of El Driver, who had been hiding in Bud's trailer the whole time. She approached El cautiously, knowing that she was facing a dangerous opponent. But Elle was caught off guard by the bride's unexpected arrival and didn't stand a chance. The bride quickly gained the upper hand and immobilized her, then cut off her hair and put her in the coffin that she had come in. But Elle managed to escape before the bride could finish her off. So the bride left to continue her quest for revenge, unaware that Elle was actually tracking her. She wanted to collect the reward that Bill had put out on her head, dead or alive. The next day, Elle followed her to Bud's trailer, disguised as a policewoman. But her plan failed when the bride saw through her disguise and confronted her. The 2 fighters engaged in a savage fight inside the cramped trailer, but Elle's chances of winning were slim. The bride had a personal vendetta against her and was fueled by an insatiable desire for revenge. As the fight intensified, Elle grew increasingly desperate and tried to stab the bride in the chest. But her attack proved to be her undoing. The bride grabbed her wrist, twisted it, and pulled the blade right through her arm, severing the tendons and nerves. Elle screamed in pain as the bride prepared to strike the fatal blow. She reached over and plucked out Elle's remaining eye, leaving her screaming in darkness. Finally, the time came for the bride to confront Bill. She paid him a surprise visit, spending a tender evening together before confronting him. The next morning, Bill revealed the truth about the attack on her wedding rehearsal. He claimed that he never intended to kill her, but that it was an act of overreaction born of love and betrayal. Despite the revelation, the bride remained calm and spoke to him as if they were old friends catching up. But beneath the surface, there was deadly tension.
When the time came, the bride executed Polly May's secret 5-point palm exploding heart technique, a move so deadly that Bill took only 5 steps before collapsing.
The bride left the house with Bibi and they rode off into the sunset together, finally free from the shadow of her past. And as the sun set, she cried tears of joy, grief, and relief, holding her daughter in her arms as the screen faded to black. And that's where our story ends. But if you want to hear more stories like this one, then please consider staying tuned for more content.